I'm Jebro and welcome to this new video series I'm doing on some builds called To The Contrary, which is basically an opposite of what the class is kind of denoted to do. So when you maybe think of a Guardian, you think of a Bunker or you think of a support as the first thing that pops into your head, and then the opposite thing you would think of them doing is probably a DPS. Obviously at the moment there is more DPS Guardians out there, but I would think of something like different, which I would do, you know, Condition Guardian. There's only like one guy I know that does that. So for Necro, I've picked a Bunker build. Now we all know there's obviously Minion Mancers out there and there's well builds and stuff like this, but this build is actually going to focus on Death Shroud and removing conditions when in Death Shroud, keeping that up, and also generating a lot of protection when you're actually casting wells as well. Now this build is I've been using in the strongest map actually is Skyhammer. When I've got the Skyhammer on me, I've actually got a lot of mitigation coming out, a lot of mitigation from the protection I'm getting from my wells, also from the Death Shroud, and also from Plaguefoot, which you can see is my elite there. So we're just going to go through the utilities very quickly. I'm basically running all wells as my utilities, including my heal. So the heal is going to be basically it's an AoE heal, which I will just put on the floor. It's quite a long heal as well, so that's one well. The next well is actually the Well of Corruption, so it converts boons on foes into conditions, which is very beneficial, especially if a Guardian is using some kind of altruistic healing build where he's putting boons on other players and they're actually healing him. So if you're removing any boons, he's not going to get any healing, and he's going to be able to be taken down quite quickly if he's on the point with you or against you. So that's actually quite a nice one to use. You can see protection on there, that is through the traits as well, and I'll go through that again as I go through the traits. Well of Darkness, so target area pulses, blinding foes with each pulse, so that is a blind which is really useful, obviously, to make sure that people aren't going to be able to get attacks, especially on you. Even if you're on your own, no one can burst you down and different things like that, because it actually pulses and you get a blind every so often. So that is really good, and the pulses of course every second, so that's an AoE blind going off every second, and that's really useful. And obviously it is a well for 5 seconds, so that's quite a lot of blinds coming out there. Going over to Well of Power, it does obviously convert conditions on allies into boons, so that's very useful in itself. Also you do get a bit of stability there, and again getting the extra protection, so there's quite a lot coming out for that as well, and it does break the stun as well, which is really nice. Of course they do come up with the combo field, the dark combo field, so you can combo that up as well. But basically the reason I'm using wells is to gain protection. This is one of the main reasons, and also there is the other utility of the blinds and different things, obviously removing conditions and changing boons into conditions and stuff like that. So there's a lot of utility with wells that isn't really used. It's used more. They are used more for damage. There is the Well of Power is used quite a lot sometimes by different people as well, but in power builds these are really strong as well. I do like to use wells. I used to use them quite a lot before, especially in dagger builds when I'm quite close quarters as well. So what I've gone with weapons wise, I've gone with the dagger, of course. I really like the dagger just for trying to get my Death Shroud up, of course, trying to regenerate as much life force as I possibly can. Also trying to get that healing HP back with the Life Siphon, and of course Dark Packs, which I'm going to use to immobilize people off points or in my actual wells as well if I want to do some extra damage, which is sometimes very much needed. Then I've gone for the focus, which is just kind of a given with the regen. So when you've got healing power stacked on yourself, the regen that you give to other players, and it's the same with any other boons, if you got boon duration and whatnot, is that based on your healing power. When you give regen to other people, it's not based on their healing power, unless that's suddenly changed all of a sudden and I'm just talking crap. Obviously Spinal Shivers is pretty good for the chill, and also removing some boons there. Try and use that on Guardians as well. It's quite a nice one to use when it's on cooldown, if you can try and pick that up anytime as well. So I have gone for the, sorry, I did go also for the staff, just as we're talking as well, because of many things. Of course, staff is good for healing. You do grant that regen, which is obviously very, very good for you and your allies. Also, you do get the chill, which is also, again, really, really good just to have. The poison as well, which obviously does, as you can see there on the tooltip, minus 33% heal effectiveness, which is always good to get any kind of poison down that you can. Obviously, chill reduces the movement speed, so people get caught in your wells a bit more as well. So you're changing all those boons into conditions, even though your condition damage isn't significant. Still, you are removing boons on the opponent, and that's always very, very useful. Putrid Muck also very good, transferring the conditions from myself to foes whenever they trigger it. That's always very, very good. Obviously, that is a blast as well, so that's a nice one to use if you can. And obviously, there is Reaper's Mark, which is the fear, and it's unblockable as well because of a trait I went into. So that's some good CC in case you want to get it down, or you want to get a res, or you want to get someone off a point. That's always very, very useful. I did go for Plague Form as well, so basically transform, obviously, and you've got different abilities. I'll just show you those just for any new players. Of course, you add bleeding to your plague, so you are going to be bleeding and causing poison. Second one is blindness, so next outgoing attack misses. Of course, you're still adding poison, and you're adding poison with all of these. And then with the third ability, you do cripple and weakness. I normally stick on blind just because, you know, I don't want the enemies to be doing abilities. I don't want them to be healing. I don't want them to get any kind of abilities off me or my team. So I'm normally spamming 2 quite heavily, trying to get some weakness and cripple and refreshing that when they're about to actually lose that condition. I'll try and refresh it and then go back onto blinds. So that's mainly that one. I'm just going to go over the rune as well. So it's the Rune of Water. I'm testing different ones. You can see the healing power runes on the left at the moment. The reason I've gone for water really is for 15% boon duration when you use a heal skill is really useful. Also, the 5% boon duration is good because not only I was thinking about going for protection from the Grove, because obviously I do give off a lot of protection, so that would help. But I do actually give out more than just protection. I do give regen, of course, as well. So generally, I feel that water is going to be a bit better in this, but I think you could use the Grove as well. It does obviously help with the plus 20 protection duration and also 50% chance when struck to root the attacking enemy. So that's actually quite a useful one to go for. So it's really, you know, a bit of choice here. I mean, I've tested both. They both feel quite similar. I mean, Rune of Water, I can get a little bit of healing off as well. It kind of changes a lot, so I'm not going to give you a figure. You're just going to have to kind of test around with it as you will. The reason I've gone for power really is because really of the dagger, to be honest, with this just seems to be doing a lot more damage. And just because of the root, really, because I really like immobilizing my targets in the wells. The build is not focused on damage. It's really just a utility healing build with support. It's not meant to do a massive amount of damage. So you can use other stuff, of course, but for me, really, the dagger is where I'm going to be surviving more. I'm going to be able to immobilize, and it's going to be the most useful to this build for my playstyle. You could use other stuff. You could use the axe and whatnot, but still, I feel like that's a little bit more damage focused. Obviously, the dagger is, but for me and for this build, this is what feels the best for me. So, I'm going to go through these sigils very quickly. I did go for a 30% chance on hit to heal allies around your target. So, that's pretty nice. I mean, the cooldown is 5 seconds as well. The healing it's not massive, but it's still something I'm kind of testing and playing around with. Always switching these healing sigils in and out, whether or not I make a build video or not. I'm always switching those around to continually test as well. Obviously, gain 50% of your endurance when you swap to this weapon. Energy is something that most healing builds you'll probably have on both, even if obviously they don't stack. But when that cooldown comes off, you can switch back, and normally you won't. I'll be spending 9 seconds or so in each weapon set anyway, of course. Sigil of Renewal, so when you swap you will be giving off some healing as well. And I can go hit some mobs in a second and show you possibly how much healing that actually does. So as we go into the traits, this is going to be a very interesting build, I did warn you. So this is 00464, gone into Blood Magic with the Grandmaster, and then of course Death Magic and Soul Reaping. So in the first trait line, which we're going to go into with Death Magic, gain toughness while Death Shroud. Death Shroud is main feature of this build, you will see as we go through these traits, but getting that extra toughness is very nice. And the cooldown is 15 seconds internal. Ritual of Protection, so wells apply protection when cast. So as you can see, 4.25 seconds of protection from each well. It's a lot of protection. It's very, very sexy. You can see that I got about almost 15 seconds there of protection just from spamming all 4 of those wells at once. Obviously I wouldn't do that because that would just be silly. I don't know why anyone would do that anyway. But it's really, really nice to have that protection. It helps a lot in fights as well. So I'd spread that out over a point if we were really in trouble, and if enemies were on, especially melee range. That would be extremely useful to try and get them off our backs. Also change any boons they had like might, and stripping that might and turning it into condition. So anyone in melee range like warriors or thieves or anything trying to do some direct damage, their DPS is going to be reduced significantly, which is why I really like the wells, especially in this build. So going next for Soul Comprehension, which is your passive life force regeneration, from nearby deaths is increased, so it's just 20% extra life force gain on kills and stuff. Greater marks, increased area of marks, and marks become unblockable, like we said. It's because of both, really. I mean, look at the size of that mark; it's so massive. And it's really, really, really good to try and put those over a point as well. So you're taking away the conditions. I'm doing a lot more regen as well. If I can hit people with that mark of blood, the more people that can get hit. Obviously, I mean, I'm going to be more chance, of that mark being hit, the more regeneration I can get onto my allies. So I do want to get them bigger so that people can actually trigger that off, especially if I'm on like faux fire or something where the point is bigger than my marks. If I can put those marks in different places, they're going to always hit something, you know. I mean, also the point as well is that they are unblockable, so they can't be blocked, so they're always going to be successfully hitting my targets. So we're going to go into Blood Magic now. So gain regeneration when your health drops below the health threshold. So below 90% you start to get regen, which is pretty good. I mean, 7 seconds of regen for hitting under 90% health. I don't go low a lot, actually. I can hold a point against 2 people for a long time, even bursty builds as well. I've gone for Mark of Blood, to inscribe a Mark of Blood that bleeds foes. Of course, that is the Staff 2 ability, which happens every single time I dodge, which also synchronizes well with the energy sigils that are on my 2 weapon sets to try and get an extra amount of dodge. There isn't much regen of my vigor in this build, so it really is from those weapon swaps that I'm trying to get the regen on my vigor to get more blocks. Of course, more dodges. Of course, that is once again completely unblockable, and I am going to be dealing some regen to my allies as well. So people are going to be really benefiting from me being around them. I can keep them up. They can focus just purely on damage rather than actually surviving. So going over to Vampiric, which is the minor towards the middle of Blood Magic. It's siphon health whenever you're hit. So a siphoning amount of life siphon is about 38 HP. So it's not a biggie. I mean, it's an extra little bit of healing. It's quite nice. I mean, it's nice to get a little bit of health here and there, but it just kind of adds to my HP, which is nice. Ritual Mastery, so reduces recharge on wells, which is kind of given by 20%. It's quite a big deal, really, seeing as these wells are quite important to my build. It's very, very, very important that those get recharged as quickly as possible, so that's why I went for that trait, really. Next over to this little tiny minor one here, so blood to power, gain additional power while your health is above the threshold. So while my HP is above 75%, I do gain an extra 120 power. Not game breaking, again I'm not doing a lot of damage in this build, but for a healing utility build, mainly focused on healing power and protection and regen, I'm doing some nice damage on my dagger. So if I can get any damage off, I'll be doing it as soon as I can with my dagger, and I'll be trying to make sure I'm doing the most damage I do while I'm above 75%. So going over to the final trait in this line, which is called Unholy Martyr. So you draw, this is a brand new trait of course, and it's actually been working quite well. I haven't actually noticed many conditions being on me at all, and this is a really quite nice trait at the moment. So draw conditions from allies while in Death Shroud, gaining life force each time a condition is drawn. So conditions transferred, and I'm not too sure what exactly happens to these conditions. Sometimes they seem to run off quite quickly, or sometimes they just kind of stay there. So I'm not sure whether or not it's bugged, or it was bugged for a couple of days, or exactly. But basically, I am actually removing conditions off my allies, and they're not affecting me at all, really, because my HP is just not going down at all. And I'm in Death Shroud, so it's not really affecting me massively, and I'm regenerating my health quite quickly in Death Shroud as well, so it's fine. It's actually, I'm not really noticing it at all. And as you can see from the description, it says draw conditions from allies while in Death Shroud, gaining life force each time a condition is drawn. So I do gain life force while I'm in Death Shroud, so more conditions the better, the longer I stay in Death Shroud, and it's just feeding my Death Shroud. So it's like, I like this idea of conditions feeding my Death Shroud. It's pretty damn cool. It does happen only every 3 seconds though, so you know, there is that awesomeness, and then there's the kind of interval of 3 seconds. It's a bit like, but I don't really need to do a special amount of stuff. You know, I just, you know, I go into Death Shroud and I start removing conditions from allies. That's it. I don't need to think about putting stuff on the ground, like my marks or anything. So I've got a lot of condition removal actually in this build, without even having just a condition removal button like an elixir or something like that. You know, it's just place a mark down, go into my Death Shroud, use a well. You know, it's like loads of different stuff. So I can, even just focusing damage and using my abilities, I could probably just remove all my conditions without even realizing it, which is why this is quite a nice build, even if you're a beginner and you just want to have some fun. Again, this isn't a build I'd probably use in competitive at all, but for solo queue, it's awesome. I haven't really lost many games while I've been playing this build, just because many people don't even have a bunker, and when they go onto a point and they see a Necro, they think, oh, I can just burst this guy down, it'll be fine. But yeah, they soon experience that, and they lose all their cooldowns. And I was against an NG today, and he was trying to burst me down, and he was so squishy I just ended up killing him. So I can actually win 1v1s quite easily. Takes a while, but I will normally keep enough sustained damage on them to actually kill them. So going to the final leg here of the traits, into Soul Reaping. So it increases life force gain from skills, so extra life force is gained at 10% there, which is always nice. I do want to get as much life force as I possibly can. This is mainly to buff Death Shroud at the moment in this trait line. Vital Persistence, so life force drains slower while in Death Shroud by 50%. So whew, this is pretty good. I mean, this is going to drain 50% less than it would normally. That's just like the static drain, of course. So when you go into it, you can of course see how slowly that's kind of draining, and of course that's draining 50% less now. But it's still pretty good. I mean, you can see life transfer is kind of ticking up. It's just staying hovering the same. Of course, when I'm getting damaged and whatnot, it's going to go down. But there's different skills which are helping me to keep my life force up quite high, and I've got a lot of recharge on my Death Shroud as well, which is really sweet. Spectral armor, so gain life force as you take damage removed when you enter Death Shroud. Also applies protection. So of course this happens when I hit 50% health. And below, of course. So that actually is a really nice proc to get. And it's got a cooldown of 60 seconds. It doesn't happen that much, so I'll get to below 50% health. If I do, I'll normally die. But that doesn't happen that much either. So it's nice to have, you know. It's another, you know, get out of jail free card. It's pretty sweet. So final trait here is near to death. So reduces recharge on Death Shroud. So this will reduce the recharge. I'll be able to get into Death Shroud quicker. So 6 seconds there, and it's really, really nice. So just again, I've been removing conditions. I've got the extra fear on the third skill in Death Shroud. Of course, I can regen my life force. I'm removing conditions. I'm doing loads of stuff. It's all good. So I like how this Death Shroud is now being used to remove conditions, heal yourself and people, and all these different things. You know, Death Shroud is being used as a positive thing, not only as damage but also as a potentially like a buffer, a support person who can actually, you know, help in team fights to a degree, along with another bunker as well. So it's nice to see that there's this kind of build out there, and there is this potential for Necro to do this. This is again a first video of this kind of To The Contrary series, which I'm going to do. If you found it fun or interesting, then just give me a shout. I'm not copying this build off anyone else. People are probably trying stuff like this. Of course, there's this is probably, you know, it's fun. I play it. It's good in solo queue and even team queue when I'm queuing on my own. It really is beneficial to my team, especially in team fights. And when people, like I said, when people see a Necro, they just think, oh, I can just kill, you know, 1v1, he's going to be quite condition heavy orientated and I can burst him down quite fast. This is not the case with this build. People cannot do that, especially with the amount of protection you can't put down. If you just even panic and put down loads of protection, you've still got Plague Form, still got all the marks, still got Death Shroud, and you've still got the regen from the focus and different abilities from the dagger and whatnot. So you're gonna be okay most occasions, no matter who you come up against. So thank you very much. Leave your comments below. Maybe Necros will dislike this build. I don't know, but it's up to them. People are free to say what they like. But I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing around with this build for a couple of days now. It's actually been quite fun, just kind of trolling around. But yeah. Leave a comment below. Tell me how you think, how you've played it. If it can be made any better. If there's different variations, I'm always interested to know different variations of builds, different fun stuff. Because I always try everyone's suggestions with as much time, of course, that I have to actually spend doing that. So thank you. This has been To The Contrary, the Necro Bunker Healer. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you very soon.